was leaving you here, they were greeting me there. Today's a day to celebrate, as I have much to be grateful for. I lived a long and rewarding life, was blessed with a wonderful family, and achieved all my goals. There is to be no sadness on this day. Remember how often I told you that dying is part of living? And do you remember me telling you that you don't get out of this world alive? Well, it's true. As I write this letter, I am aware that my memory is beginning to flicker slightly, and that I may not be able to share these thoughts with you much longer. So I will share them with you now while I still can. I always tried to make each of you feel that you were safe, special, and truly loved. It was your little imperfections that made you perfect for me. Nancy Jean, you were my first child, and special because you were my only daughter. I loved sewing pretty dresses for you. I remember sewing a dress with cherries all over it. Remember that? You were in the first grade at the time and had your school picture taken wearing that dress. When we moved from the house next door, the Powell house, to our new home at the corner, you were only 3. I watched in amusement as you sat in on the Davenport while 2 men carried you into our new house. You were headstrong, bossy, and stubborn. On one occasion, I had to send you to your bedroom. It must have been around Christmas time because you had a candy cane with you. You were so mad you threw the candy at the wall and it actually stuck in the plaster. Bill used to shake all over when he had to discipline you because you were a little fighter. When you were very little, I took you to the doctor because you had a lazy eye. He gave me some sticky Vaseline-like medicine to put in your eye. The medicine went missing, and I found it many months later buried under a pile of blankets in your closet. Your desire to become a baton twirler almost drove me crazy. You would practice in your room, and after hearing constant thuds from the baton being dropped, I finally hit it in the cedar chest. Oh, this one is good. It was my practice to produce an enema bag whenever someone complained about a stomachache. Okay. Let's see, I lost my head. Okay. One day, I decided you needed the bag. I never saw you run so fast. Out the cellar door, you went straight up to the vacant lot. I was right behind you. Yes, you got the enema. But with hindsight, if you could run that far, that fast, maybe you didn't really need one at all. I was concerned that you were spending so much time with a hoodlum boy named Jack. He had a terrible flat-top haircut and always had his hands in his pockets. Pooey on him. I was washing clothes one day when you asked about going on a date with this Jack boy. I said that you really needed to see other boys. So reluctantly, you accepted a date to a hayride with Joe. I didn't realize how much this upset flat-top Jack. I found out later that he followed that hayride from beginning to end and then followed you all the way home. After that, I gave up and never bothered you about dating anyone else. When you graduated from high school, you went to the Merle Norman Cosmetics store. Is there one still here? I don't know. And purchased a bottle of facial mask. We both tried it at home at the same time. It turned our faces red and burned something awful. It also got very hard. We both sat on the stair steps, doubled over in laughter, peeing our pants, and trying to decide if being beautiful was really worth all that pain. You graduated from high school the spring after Bill died. You went to work to help support the family. You had a college scholarship offered to you from St. Francis College, but you told them that you needed to help out at home. I was so very proud of you for making this selfless decision. You were my favorite child. I look forward to all the letters and phone calls you made after you married that Jack Reese boy and became a mother yourself. Jack turned out to be a good boy and ended up as my favorite son-in-law. Now that's the only son-in-law she had. I was sad that you lived so far away from me. You are my only daughter, my first child, and my very special favorite. Tom. It was a cold, dark December night, and we had a civil defense blackout. It was almost Christmas. I felt the water run down my legs, and I began to cramp up something awful. It was time for child number 2. Our little Tommy arrived, and oh, you were such a cute baby. Dad was so excited to have a son, and I was so excited to have a new baby. God was finally giving to me instead of taking. Yes, I had lost my mother and my father, but now I had a husband and 2 delightful babies. Yes, babies because already bossy Nancy was still so young, only 16 months old. Aside from your constant bedwetting, which would later force your brother Jerry to sleep in the bathtub, you were a fairly pleasant child. Time flew, and soon it was time to go to school. The neighbors gathered up the 5-year-olds and trekked off to Northside High School, where kindergarten roundup was being held. I remember how scared you were. You hung on to me and cried like a baby when you were given your immunization shot. But it was time for you to be brave and enter Forest Park. Back then, children of age could begin school at semester break. You started school in January and got along quite well with your teacher, Miss Schwer. You loved to play grocery store and once took an empty Quaker Oat box for a store display. After spending 1.5 years in kindergarten, yes, almost 2 years. Not because you were slow, but because when you finished kindergarten, it was in December and you could not start first grade at St. Jude's until September. Not wanting you underfoot, I kept you at Forest Park for an additional semester of kindergarten. After you started first grade, all you talked about was becoming an altar boy. By the time you reached 5th grade, you began training with Sister Patricia Ann. Dad helped you with your Latin responses, remembering all of them from the times he served when he was a boy. You were always selected to serve at funerals and weddings. You also liked to wear the special apparel for the main processions. I made your vestments to wear while you played church in the basement. I kept the church bulletin when you served your first Mass. I know you still have the bulletin. As a kid, you wanted to study Latin of all languages. Imagine that. I thought for sure I was ready once I convinced you to join the priesthood. One of my happiest days was the day we drove you up to Wawasee Lake to Our Lady of Lake Seminary. One of my saddest days was when you called a week later and wanted to come home. When you had your paper route, you paid your bill on Saturday mornings, and on the way home, when in season, you frequently brought me fresh, beautiful gladiolas from farmer's market downtown. Jerry just gave me cherry clips. I felt bad that you had to grow up so fast. After Dad died, you felt you needed to help the family. You were only 16. You found a job at Parkview Hospital, handled the 120 customer paper route over to Jerry, and worked after school and on the weekends. The amazing thing is, you always gave me most of the money you earned. There were 6 of us. No husband, father. We had no car. I didn't know how to drive anyway. And my full-time job was to raise 5 children, all on Dad's Social Security check. We didn't have much, but we didn't know it. We had each other. Eventually, as you grew older, I knew that you would need to start a life path of your own. I used my secret weapons. I knew a family from Ossian that only charged me $900 to arrange a marriage with their daughter. Never knew that was an arranged marriage. Is that right, Joe? The only bad thing about the situation was that you kept coming back to visit, bringing your extended family with you. I got over that eventually. Tom, I have always been so proud of you. The effort and determination that you put into your education was a delight to me. I was so very proud of you when you received your PhD from Purdue, Dr. Byanski. That was a tremendous accomplishment and the first for anyone in our family. Seeing you receive the Governor's Sagamore of the Wabash Award also made me so very proud. Thomas, you turned out more than just fine. Know that I know that you will always look out for me and love me. You are truly my very special and favorite child. Jerry. I don't know whether I believe half this. Jerry, you arrived in 1945 and were our prettiest baby. There is something everyone should know, including you, Jerry. Jerry, pay attention. The reason you have always been my favorite is from the way you came into our lives. One dark winter night in February of 1945, we heard a soulful cry coming from our front porch. I'm not so sure she wrote this. A stunningly beautiful newborn had been left in a small wicker basket, wrapped in dirty swaddling clothes and covered with an old horsehair blanket. This wonderful little baby had been left there by Russian gypsy travelers who had become weakened by the cold winter and malnutrition. Dad and I instantly fell in love with this glowing child. We memorized and then burned the note we found in the basket. It read, "Please take our boy Nikolai Pankoff and raise him as your own. Signed, the Russian Gypsy Traveler." Jerry, we quickly brought you into our home, and we did make you our own. You were so beautiful. And yes, our prettiest baby. Uncle Jack and your dad found a way to have Dr. Mendenhall proclaim it as a home birth. Although there were some minor questionable problems with the birth certificate. We ultimately renamed you Jerome Stephen Byanski. This explains why I could and could not find your birth certificate when everyone wanted to see theirs. Jerome worked at the Catholic Community Center where I met your father, and Dad admired him a lot. Dad, Nancy, little Tom, and I